On a tempestuous night in Silver Glen, when the wind howled like a forlorn spirit and sheets of rain battered the narrow cobblestone streets, a modest eatery called Luna's Eatery stood defiantly open. The storm raged without mercy as thunder boomed overhead, shaking the windows of the century-old buildings that lined the town's quiet avenues. Streetlights struggled to pierce the murk of swirling fog and torrential downpour, their weak beams casting sporadic, trembling halos onto the rain-slicked pavement. While most establishments had long since shuttered their doors and taken refuge from the relentless fury of the weather, Luna's Eatery, a small, warmly lit restaurant on the edge of Silver Glen, remained a beacon for those brave enough to venture out in such a deluge. Inside the diner, Savannah Lane, a kind-hearted waitress in her early 40s with gentle eyes and an unassuming smile, moved methodically behind the counter. She had spent countless hours during that long, stormy evening wiping down surfaces and arranging cutlery as she waited for the night to yield to the promise of dawn. Business had been exceptionally slow. The ferocity of the storm had driven nearly everyone indoors. With the clock inching toward closing time, Savannah glanced at the worn analog clock on the wall and sighed softly, thinking that in just another hour she could finally return to the small apartment she called home. Even though fatigue tugged at her limbs and the solitude of the night pressed in, she remained steadfast in her gentle determination to serve anyone who might find solace in the warmth of her establishment. Just as she was about to fold the day's work into a quiet resignation, a sudden commotion at the entrance shattered the lull. The roar of a massive engine interrupted the drumming of the rain, and through the blurred glass of the diner's front door, the piercing beams of headlights cut a path through the watery darkness. Outside, a colossal truck, its form obscured by the torrential downpour, rolled slowly up to the diner. The vehicle's enormous tires churned up splashes from deep, swirling puddles, and for a moment the truck sat motionless, its engine idling as if contemplating its next move. Then, without warning, the heavy door creaked open, and a tall, solitary figure emerged, stepping hesitantly into the deluge. Savannah's heart skipped a beat as she watched the stranger approach. His silhouette was momentarily obscured by the driving rain, but as he drew nearer, details emerged. The man was drenched through to the skin, his clothes hung loosely and were soaked with rain, and his worn, muddy boots testified to miles of hard travel. Water cascaded from his unkempt, shaggy hair, and from a thick beard that gave him an unintentional, rugged look. He carried himself with a hesitant air, as though each step was measured and burdened by memories of hardship. Clad in a heavy, sodden jacket that he made no effort to remove, he proceeded without a word toward the farthest booth in the back of the diner, his gloved hands resting silently on the scratched wooden table as he settled into his seat. His presence was quiet, almost ghost-like, and he offered no greeting as he sat alone, lost in the storm's symphony of noise. After a moment of silent observation from behind the counter, Savannah mustered her trademark gentle smile and approached him with her notepad in hand. "Welcome to Luna's Eatery," she said warmly, her voice imbued with genuine concern despite the tumult outside. "What can I get for you tonight?" The stranger's eyes remained fixed on the table, and he uttered no reply. Savannah waited a few moments, hoping that perhaps a simple request might emerge, so she offered softly, "How about a cup of hot coffee? Maybe a hearty meal to warm you up?" Yet still, the man said nothing, his posture rigid and his gaze distant, as though he were absorbed in thoughts far removed from the present. Not wanting to press him further in the face of obvious sorrow, Savannah retreated momentarily into the back, leaving the man to his silence. A few minutes later, she reappeared, carrying a steaming plate piled high with chicken pot pie, accompanied by a generous serving of creamy mashed potatoes and a freshly brewed cup of coffee. With careful precision, she placed the meal in front of him. At last, the man's head lifted ever so slightly, revealing a pair of striking, piercing green eyes that shimmered with an almost imperceptible mixture of shock and deep-seated emotion. I didn't order this," he murmured in a low, gravelly tone, his voice carrying the weight of untold stories. Savannah's smile remained steadfast as she replied, "It's on the house." For a brief moment, the stranger's eyes seemed to flicker with something akin to surprise, or perhaps even relief, as though her simple kindness had stirred something long dormant within him. He opened his mouth, as if to protest further, but no words emerged, After a long, reflective pause, he simply nodded slowly and whispered, "Thank you." With that, Savannah withdrew, leaving him to his solitude while she kept a discreet eye on him from the counter. For the remainder of the stormy night, the man ate slowly, almost reverently, as if each bite was imbued with the significance of a precious gift. Savannah couldn't help but observe how he seemed to savor every morsel, as though it were the most exquisite meal he had tasted in ages. When he finally rose from his seat and shuffled toward the door, he paused at the threshold. His eyes met hers one last time, and in that silent exchange, an unspoken promise seemed to pass between them. Then, without uttering another word, he stepped out into the raging storm and vanished into the night, leaving Savannah with a lingering sense of mystery and an inexplicable tug at her heart. Days slipped by, and the storm that had so ferociously battered Silver Glen gradually gave way to the crisp, cool embrace of early autumn. Savannah almost had forgotten the enigmatic stranger until one clear afternoon, when the door of Luna's Eatery swung open once more. But this time the visitor was unmistakably different. Gone were the tattered clothes and mud-caked boots, replaced by the immaculate appearance of a well-dressed gentleman. The man who entered now was clad in a sleek, tailored navy suit that contrasted starkly with his previous bedraggled attire. His shoes gleamed as if polished to perfection. His hair was neatly combed, and a refined watch adorned his wrist, catching the light of the diner's fluorescent bulbs. His transformation was nothing short of astonishing, and Savannah, who was clearing a table near the window, froze in mid-motion as she recognized him approaching the counter. "Hello again," he said, his deep, resonant voice tinged with a note of gentle amusement. Savannah's eyes widened in disbelief as she stuttered. I recognize you, but how?" The man offered a slight, knowing chuckle before extending a hand in greeting. "I'm Preston Rowe," he said, his tone both sincere and quietly amused. "We met on that stormy night, though you might not remember clearly." At the mention of his name, a spark of recollection lit up Savannah's face. The man before her was indeed the very same truck driver who, just days earlier, had shrouded himself in silence and sorrow within the confines of her diner. Yet now, as he stood there with the confident bearing of a man transformed, it was hard to reconcile his current polished demeanor with the image of the weary drifter from that stormy night. Savannah's heart pounded with both wonder and trepidation as she managed to ask, "Preston, why are you here now? And what has changed?" Preston leaned in, his eyes glistening with a complex mixture of regret and gratitude. "That night, I was at my lowest," he confessed in a quiet, reflective tone. "I had lost everything. My way, my fortune, my belief in a better future. I was adrift, burdened by regret and haunted by the mistakes I'd made. When I stepped into Luna's Eatery, I never expected anything more than a brief respite from the storm. But your kindness, so genuine and unassuming, resonated with me deeply. It reminded me that even in the darkest moments, there can be a spark of hope. I've since turned my life around, rebuilt what I lost, and now I have the means to change not only my own fate, but also to help others along the way." Savannah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she listened, scarcely able to believe the tale unfolding before her. "But why me?" she managed to whisper. "Why did you choose to return here, to me?" Preston's gaze softened, and he reached into the inner pocket of his impeccably tailored jacket. Slowly, he withdrew a crisp white envelope and placed it on the counter in front of her. "Because, Savannah," he said gently, "that night you offered me a free meal without hesitation, without expectation of anything in return. You treated me with a dignity that I had long forgotten, and I have spent years repaying that debt of kindness in my own way. In my journey to rebuild everything I lost, I made a promise to myself to honor that moment of compassion by helping those who, like you, carry dreams and struggles in equal measure." With trembling fingers, Savannah picked up the envelope and, after a brief moment of hesitation, opened it. Inside lay a check of such an astronomical amount that, for a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. The sum was more money than she had ever dared imagine. A windfall that could not only pay off her debts, but also provide her with the resources to pursue her long-held ambition of opening her very own restaurant. Overwhelmed by the sudden generosity and the unexpected turn of fate, Savannah's voice wavered as she stammered, I can't possibly accept this." Preston shook his head firmly. "Yes, you can," he replied in a tone that brooked no argument. "I did my research, and I know that you have worked tirelessly at Luna's Eatery for years, saving every penny you earned, all in pursuit of a dream that seems almost out of reach. This is your chance, Savannah, to make that dream a reality. Not everyone would have shown such kindness that stormy night, and I believe that kindness deserves to be rewarded." The check, a tangible manifestation of a promise fulfilled, left Savannah breathless. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched it tightly, her mind reeling with the possibilities that now lay before her. "But why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the residual hum of disbelief and gratitude. Preston's smile was soft yet earnest as he replied, "Because kindness in its purest form has the power to change lives, and I believe in paying it forward. I have rebuilt my life from the ashes of despair, and I owe much of that to the simple act of compassion you extended without knowing who I was. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter, not only for you, but for everyone whose life you touch." In the weeks that followed, the news of Preston Rowe's dramatic transformation spread like wildfire through Silver Glen. Once known as a silent, weather-beaten truck driver, he was now heralded as a self-made billionaire, a man who had risen from the depths of adversity to become one of the most influential figures in the transportation industry. His reappearance at Luna's Eatery and the extraordinary gift he bestowed upon Savannah became the talk of the town, a story whispered in hushed tones in coffee shops, discussed in animated conversation at community gatherings, and celebrated as a symbol of hope and redemption. Savannah, whose humble life had been defined by long hours behind a diner counter and the quiet fulfillment of serving others, now found herself standing on the threshold of a new future. With Preston's generous check as seed money, she secured a prime location in downtown Silver Glen, a charming building with large windows and an inviting atmosphere. Over the next several months, she poured her heart and soul into transforming the space into a restaurant that would not only serve sumptuous home-cooked meals, but also serve as a gathering place for the community. A venue where dreams could be nurtured and the power of kindness celebrated. The restaurant, which she named Savory Haven, opened its doors with a grand celebration that drew people from every corner of Silver Glen and beyond. The menu, a careful blend of traditional comfort food and modern culinary flair, was a testament to Savannah's lifelong passion for cooking and her unwavering commitment to creating something beautiful out of hardship. Local newspapers ran glowing profiles of her journey, from a dedicated waitress working at a small diner on a stormy night to the proud owner of a thriving restaurant that embodied the spirit of community and generosity. Savannah's story, interwoven with Preston Rowe's remarkable turnaround, became a source of inspiration for many, a living reminder that a single act of kindness can set off a chain reaction of hope and transformation. As Savory Haven flourished, Savannah never forgot the lessons learned on that fateful night. Every Tuesday, she initiated a community care night at her restaurant, during which a special menu was offered at no charge to those in need. This initiative was designed to ensure that everyone, regardless of circumstance, could share in the warmth and camaraderie of a good meal. In addition, she established a culinary scholarship program to support aspiring chefs from underprivileged backgrounds, believing that talent should never be stifled by financial hardship. Her commitment to giving back to the community was unwavering, and it transformed Savory Haven from merely a restaurant into a sanctuary of hope and creativity. Preston Rowe, meanwhile, embraced his role not only as a successful entrepreneur but also as a philanthropist. Publicly, he launched the Rowe Foundation, a charitable organization dedicated to tackling homelessness, providing job training, and offering educational programs to help rebuild lives devastated by economic hardship. Despite his newfound wealth and high-profile status, Preston remained humble, often emphasizing that his success was built on the foundation of a single, life-changing moment of kindness. In interviews, he recounted that stormy night with quiet reverence, speaking of the transformative power of compassion and the importance of recognizing that every individual's struggles deserved empathy and support. One cool autumn evening, as dusk settled over Silver Glen and the golden glow of street lamps began to chase away the remnants of twilight, Savannah was closing up Savory Haven after a particularly busy day. The restaurant buzzed with the lingering warmth of laughter and shared stories, a stark contrast to the lonely, stormy night that had set everything in motion. As she wiped down the tables and straightened chairs, the soft chime of the doorbell announced an unexpected visitor. Looking up, Savannah's eyes widened in astonishment as she recognized the familiar figure of Preston Rowe standing in the doorway once more. "Preston," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of surprise and delight. "I didn't expect to see you again tonight." With his signature calm smile, Preston replied, "I hope I'm not intruding. I just wanted to see how you were doing. This place, it's everything I had imagined and more." He stepped inside, his eyes glancing around appreciatively at the vibrant life that had blossomed within Savory Haven. The comfortable hum of conversation and clinking cutlery seemed to underscore the transformation, not only of the restaurant, but also of the community itself. Seating themselves at a quiet corner table away from the bustling crowd, Savannah and Preston engaged in a deep conversation that stretched long into the night. They spoke candidly about their respective journeys, the struggles they had faced, the moments of despair that once seemed insurmountable, and the glimmers of hope that had carried them forward. Savannah recounted the trials of working tirelessly at a small diner on the outskirts of Silver Glen, the loneliness that often accompanied her shift during stormy nights, and the burning dream of one day creating a place where everyone could find solace and nourishment. Preston, in turn, spoke about the dark days of his past, the moment when he had lost everything, and the singular act of kindness that had sparked his transformation. He confessed that on that stormy night, when he had first entered Luna's Eatery, he had felt something he had long thought lost. A sliver of hope that had encouraged him to rebuild not just his fortune, but his very life. Their conversation meandered through memories and dreams, each word building a bridge between two souls whose paths had been forever intertwined by fate. As the night deepened, Preston's tone grew reflective, and he reached across the table to gently grasp Savannah's hand. "Savannah," he said softly, "I want you to promise me something. Promise that no matter how much success comes your way, you will never stop being kind. That you will always remember that it was a single act of compassion, a free meal on a stormy night, that changed everything for both of us." Savannah's eyes shimmered with tears as she nodded, her voice choked with emotion. "I promise, Preston. I'll never forget." In that quiet, poignant moment, the power of kindness was reaffirmed, a power that had already transformed their lives and the lives of many others in Silver Glen. In the months and years that followed, the impact of that singular act of compassion rippled through the community. Savory Haven evolved into a thriving hub of culinary artistry and community support, its walls echoing with the stories of hope, perseverance, and renewal. Savannah dedicated herself to mentoring young chefs and organizing charity events that brought together people from all walks of life. The restaurant became a living testament to the idea that when one person extends a hand in kindness, it can create ripples that eventually turn into waves of change. Preston's transformation from a silent, weary truck driver into a self-made billionaire and philanthropic visionary became a well-known legend in Silver Glen. His Rowe Foundation launched numerous initiatives ranging from shelters for the homeless to vocational training programs for those seeking a second chance in life. At charity galas and public events, he would often recount the story of that fateful stormy night as a reminder of the transformative power of empathy. Although the media sometimes speculated about the mysteries of his past and the sudden turnaround in his fortunes, those who knew him understood that his success was not measured solely in monetary terms, but in the lives he touched with his generosity. One chilly winter evening, as soft snow began to dust the rooftops of Silver Glen, Savannah was busy in the kitchen preparing for the evening's community care night at Savory Haven. The restaurant had become a sanctuary for those in need, a place where everyone was welcome to enjoy a warm meal, share their stories, and find solace in the embrace of community. As she moved gracefully between the kitchen and the dining area, Savannah's thoughts turned to that stormy night and to Preston's unwavering words. It was then that the door swung open once more, and a young man, his appearance reminiscent of Preston's early days on that stormy night, stepped hesitantly inside. His eyes, weary yet hopeful, scanned the room until they met Savannah's kind gaze. "Welcome to Savory Haven," she said, her voice as warm as the freshly baked bread on display. "What can I get you tonight?" The young man paused, uncertainty flickering in his gaze, and without waiting for a response, Savannah turned and hurried to the kitchen, returning with a hot meal that she placed before him with a gentle smile. As he took his first bite, his eyes brightened with gratitude, and in that moment, Savannah knew that the legacy of kindness would continue to weave its magic through Silver Glen. Over time, Savory Haven expanded its influence well beyond the confines of the restaurant. Savannah spearheaded numerous community initiatives, ranging from free culinary classes for disadvantaged youth to monthly gatherings that celebrated local talent and fostered a spirit of unity among residents. Her tireless dedication transformed the restaurant into a symbol of hope and resilience, a place where the smallest acts of kindness could blossom into transformative change. People from neighboring towns began to visit Silver Glen not only for its scenic beauty and friendly atmosphere, but also for the chance to experience the nurturing spirit that radiated from Savory Haven. As word spread of Savannah's success and the inspirational story of that stormy night, even the most skeptical hearts began to soften. Local business owners, community leaders, and everyday citizens rallied behind her efforts, contributing their time and resources to help support her various charitable projects. The energy of generosity permeated every corner of Silver Glen, and a new era of hope and compassion seemed to have dawned upon the small town. In interviews with local newspapers and on community radio shows, Savannah often recounted her journey with quiet humility. "It was a single act of kindness," she would say, "that opened my eyes to the endless possibilities in each of us. I never imagined that one free meal on a stormy night would change not just my life, but the life of an entire community." Preston, too, continued to play an active role in uplifting those around him. Despite his newfound success and status as a billionaire, he often preferred to remain out of the spotlight, quietly working behind the scenes to ensure that the initiatives launched under his Rowe Foundation were both impactful and sustainable. He would frequently visit Savory Haven incognito, sometimes joining Savannah for a quiet dinner or simply observing the joyous interactions of those who found refuge within its walls. His heart, once burdened by regret and sorrow, now beat with the fervor of a man who had discovered that true wealth was measured not in dollars, but in the smiles of those whose lives were touched by his generosity. One balmy summer evening, during a special community festival held in the central square of Silver Glen, Savannah and Preston found themselves seated together beneath the twinkling glow of string lights and the soft murmur of celebratory music. They reminisced about the fateful night when their paths had first crossed. The night when a simple gesture had sown the seeds of transformation. Preston spoke with quiet conviction about the hardships he had faced and the difficult choices that had once defined his life, while Savannah shared the bittersweet memories of working late into stormy nights, driven by an unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of people. "I often think back to that moment when I saw you sitting there, all alone in the midst of that raging storm," Preston said, his voice reflective. "I was lost, consumed by regret and despair, and your kindness shone through like a lighthouse, guiding me to safer shores. I knew then that I had to change my fate, not only for myself, but also for everyone who believed that even the smallest act of compassion could alter the course of destiny." Savannah listened intently, her eyes glistening with unshed tears as she squeezed his hand. "I never expected that one free meal, one genuine moment of care, would come full circle," she replied softly. "But it has taught me that our lives are intertwined in ways we can scarcely understand. The kindness we share is a gift, and it returns to us in ways that often exceed our wildest dreams." In the years that followed, Savannah and Preston's bond deepened into a partnership that transcended business and philanthropy. Together, they envisioned a future where kindness and community spirit were the cornerstones of Silver Glen's identity. Their collaborative efforts gave rise to a new project, a state-of-the-art community center named The Haven, established in a renovated warehouse on the outskirts of town. The center offered free meals, job training programs, and a safe space for residents to gather, learn, and heal. The grand opening of The Haven was celebrated with a festival that drew visitors from across the region, each person touched by the palpable energy of hope and renewal that radiated from every corner of the facility. Savannah's life, once defined by long, lonely nights at Luna's Eatery and the quiet sacrifices of a humble waitress, had now transformed into a tapestry woven with vibrant threads of community, success, and unwavering generosity. The restaurant she built with her own two hands not only fulfilled her lifelong dream, but also became a beacon for those seeking to rise above adversity. Every Tuesday night, during the community care events, a diverse crowd gathered to share stories, exchange ideas, and, most importantly, to break bread together. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect and heartfelt gratitude, a living testament to the idea that even in the face of life's most daunting challenges, a single act of kindness could ignite a revolution of hope. Preston, having long reconciled the shadows of his past, devoted much of his energy to mentoring young entrepreneurs and supporting charitable causes that aim to uplift the disadvantaged. His philanthropic endeavors, championed by the Rowe Foundation, set in motion a ripple effect that transformed the lives of countless individuals across Silver Glen and beyond. Though he was often heralded in the media as a visionary businessman, those who knew him best understood that his true legacy lay in the simple truth that kindness, when shared without expectation, possessed the extraordinary power to heal even the deepest of wounds. One crisp autumn night, as leaves danced along the sidewalks and the cool breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and possibility, Savannah found herself alone in the quiet intimacy of Savory Haven after closing. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a nighttime radio filled the silence as she sat at a small table near the window. Lost in thought, she remembered the stormy night when a drifter had wandered into her diner, the moment when she had extended a warm meal to a man she barely knew. That memory, vivid and enduring, had become the cornerstone of her journey, a reminder that even in darkness, there was light to be found in a single, compassionate act. At that moment, a soft knock at the door startled her. Opening it, she found a young man, his eyes filled with the same uncertainty that she recalled from that long-ago night. "Hello?" he said hesitantly, his voice trembling with the weight of unspoken troubles. I need a meal, if you wouldn't mind." Without missing a beat, Savannah smiled warmly, ushering him inside as she had once done for Preston on that fateful stormy evening. "Of course," she replied. "Welcome to Savory Haven. Come, sit down." As she guided him to a booth and returned to the kitchen to prepare a hot plate of food, she couldn't help but feel a profound sense of continuity, a reassurance that kindness, like a beacon, would always find its way back. Over the following years, the legacy of that one stormy night continued to flourish in ways that neither Savannah nor Preston could have imagined. Savory Haven and the Haven became not only pillars of the community in Silver Glen, but also symbols of what could be achieved when individuals chose to act with compassion and generosity. Local schools integrated community service into their curricula, inspired by the example set by these two extraordinary individuals, and the spirit of giving became interwoven into the fabric of everyday life in the town. Savannah's journey, from a determined waitress braving a violent storm to a celebrated restaurateur and community leader, was chronicled in local media and eventually became a cherished part of Silver Glen's folklore. In interviews, she would speak softly about the importance of empathy and the transformative power of a simple gesture. It doesn't take much. A warm smile, a hot meal, a kind word, to change someone's life, she would say. "I was once on the receiving end of that kindness, and it changed everything for me. Now, I strive every day to pay it forward." Preston, too, remained a steadfast presence in the lives of those he touched. His quiet humility and unyielding commitment to bettering the community garnered him widespread respect, and he continued to mentor young leaders who looked up to him as a living example of resilience and redemption. At charity events, he would recount his early days of struggle with a soft laugh and a gentle nod, never forgetting to credit that one fateful night for the extraordinary journey that followed. One balmy summer evening during a celebratory gala hosted by the Rowe Foundation at the Haven, Savannah and Preston found themselves seated together on a balcony, overlooking the bustling festivities below. The golden light of dusk bathed the scene in a soft, almost ethereal glow, as they reminisced about the moments that had brought them to this place of unity and hope. "I still remember how you looked that night," Preston said quietly, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and wonder. "There was a resilience in you that shone through, even in the midst of that terrible storm. You gave me something I had long forgotten, the belief that kindness is its own reward." Savannah's voice trembled with emotion as she replied. "And you, despite all that you'd been through, transformed your pain into a legacy of generosity. I'll never forget the promise you made to me that night, to always remain kind no matter what. That promise has guided me every single day since." Their words, spoken softly, against the backdrop of jubilant music and heartfelt laughter, were a testament to the enduring impact of one act of kindness. As the evening wore on, they joined the other guests, each person there a living embodiment of the hope that had sprouted from that stormy night at Luna's Eatery. The celebration was not merely a party, it was a heartfelt acknowledgement that in a world often marred by hardship and despair, there were still those who believed in the power of compassion to create lasting change. Years later, Savannah would often walk the quiet streets of Silver Glen at twilight, her thoughts returning to the many lives that had been touched by her journey. In the soft, fading light, she could almost hear the echo of that long-ago storm, a reminder that even the darkest nights are followed by the promise of a new dawn. And as she gazed at the faces of young people gathering at the haven, sharing laughter and dreams over warm meals, she knew with absolute certainty that the legacy of kindness was not a fleeting moment, but an everlasting flame that continued to illuminate the lives of countless souls. Preston, now a revered figure in the community, continued to champion the cause of giving back. At public forums and in heartfelt interviews, he would often say, "There is no greater investment than in the well-being of another human being. A single act of kindness can change not only one life, but ripple outward to touch an entire community." His words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with everyone who heard them, and they served as a daily reminder that no matter how successful one might become, it is the small gestures, the shared meals, the kind smiles, the helping hand, that truly define a person's legacy. As the seasons changed and Silver Glen blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of community, creativity, and compassion, the story of that stormy night continued to be told and retold, a modern legend of hope. It was said that on particularly stormy nights, if one listened closely outside the doors of Savory Haven, they might hear the gentle murmur of laughter and the soft clinking of dishes, as memories of a long-ago kindness mingled with the sound of falling rain. And in those moments, the town would be reminded that every person, no matter how ordinary, carries within them the extraordinary potential to transform the lives of others. In the grand scheme of life, it is often the simplest acts that have the most profound impact. Savannah's journey, from a dedicated waitress braving the fury of a storm to a visionary restaurateur and community leader, was a shining example of how one small gesture can reverberate through time, sparking change in ways that defy expectation. Her unwavering commitment to kindness had not only altered her own destiny, but had also sown the seeds of transformation throughout Silver Glen, creating a legacy that would endure for generations to come. Now, as twilight fell over the town and the stars emerged one by one against the deep velvet sky, Savannah stepped outside Savory Haven for a moment of quiet reflection. In the gentle rustle of the autumn leaves and the distant murmur of a late-night breeze, she felt the comforting weight of the promise she had made so many years ago, to never stop being kind. That promise, forged on a stormy night and carried forward by the generous heart of Preston Rowe, had become the guiding light of her life. And so, in the tapestry of Silver Glen's history, the story of Savannah Lane and Preston Rowe would forever serve as a reminder that kindness is not an occasional luxury, but a daily necessity. A power that can bridge divides, heal wounds, and ultimately change the world. In every shared meal, every warm smile, and every heartfelt act of compassion, the legacy of that fateful night lived on, illuminating the darkest of times and inspiring future generations to believe in the transformative power of a single, selfless act. As the years rolled on, Savory Haven continued to thrive as a sanctuary for those in need, and the haven stood as a monument to community resilience and the boundless capacity of the human heart. The story of that stormy night, with all its mystery and miraculous turns, remained etched in the collective memory of Silver Glen, a story that began with a free meal on a dark, rainy night and blossomed into an enduring movement of hope and redemption. In the quiet moments before the break of dawn, as the first light of a new day crept over Silver Glen, those who had been touched by Savannah's kindness would often pause to reflect on the miracles that had come to be. They would remember the man who had walked into Luna's Eatery drenched in despair, only to return as a beacon of success and generosity. They would recall the promise made between two kindred spirits on a stormy night, a promise to always nurture the spark of compassion, no matter the hardships ahead. Thus, the legacy of that night, and of the lives it forever altered, continued to shine like a lighthouse in the dark. It was a testament to the belief that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and that, even in a world that sometimes seems overwhelmed by turmoil, there will always be those who choose to extend a hand in empathy. Savannah's journey, intertwined with Preston's remarkable transformation, stood as living proof that a single moment of grace could indeed set in motion a cascade of change that echoes through time. In the final analysis, the story of Savannah Lane and Preston Rowe was more than just a tale of chance encounters and financial windfalls. It was an enduring reminder that the true measure of success is found not in wealth or accolades, but in the simple, profound acts of love and kindness that bind us together as human beings. And as Silver Glen continued to evolve into a community defined by its compassion and unity, the gentle spirit of that stormy night would forever illuminate the path forward, inspiring everyone who walked its streets to believe in the power of a single, life-changing gesture. Thus concludes the chronicle of that unforgettable night in Silver Glen, a night when a free meal, given without expectation, transformed two lives and set into motion a chain reaction of generosity that would forever alter the fate of a community. In the echoes of thunder and the soft whispers of the wind, the message remains clear. Kindness is a currency that enriches both the giver and the receiver, and its rewards are measured not in dollars, but in the hope and joy it creates. And so, in every warm greeting at Savory Haven, every shared moment of laughter and every act of support at the Haven, the legacy of that stormy night lives on. It reminds us all that no matter how dark the night or how fierce the storm, a single act of compassion can kindle a flame that burns bright enough to light the way for us all.